Welcome to Going Beyond, and thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be one of those serious episodes of Going Beyond because it's an issue that is very close to my heart and something I think that we all need to know about. This refers to sexual harassment of women in the workforce, in the home, in the public square, wherever. And so it's most appropriate that I have with me Nalini Olivannan. She's here, she's a lawyer, she's been a lawyer for many, many years. But over the past 9 years, she's begun to concentrate on this entire issue. And so it's a pleasure for me, Nalini, to have you here. Thank you so much indeed. I'm just wondering, you've been a lawyer for so long, and somehow you've gravitated towards, sexual harassment for the past 8 or 9 years. What was it that attracted you into this particular specialty?
First of all, thank you, Jennifer, for having me here. It's such a wonderful opportunity to talk to you.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, having been a lawyer for 30 plus years and then gravitating, as you said, towards sexual harassment has been something that I have noticed in my sphere as a lawyer. Have seen people keeping quiet when there have been instances of small microaggressions or, where people chip off their dignity, and women have just kept quiet and walked past it or ignored it. So for me, at that moment I would feel, why are they not opening up and talking? Why are they not questioning? Was something that made me move towards this.
But I would imagine that a lot of women are a little bit apprehensive, nervous about coming out and speaking, because then they might get, end up with even more abuse or more sexual harassment than they even started with. Is that something that they would actually think about?
Very true. And it's still happening, I can tell you.
Really?
Yes. Especially at workplace, where I kind of specialize in POSH trainings that I do. I have seen a lot of women come after, there's a certain time frame that the law gives to persons to come up with their complaints or concerns. I see a lot of them coming after the time frame. And when we ask them, why didn't you do this before? Then they say, I was scared. I was not sure if I can open my mouth and talk. I was not sure what will be the repercussions be of this. There are still people, but there's an equal number of women, I can say, that are now ready to stand up and question such behaviors.
I think that's probably because of people like yourself who are willing really to stand up and represent. Say, if I had a problem, then I have somebody like you who's going to speak up for me. Because I think a lot of people are very timid about coming forward. And then if there isn't a lady lawyer, then you have somebody, at least a lady lawyer you can sort of trust, and hopefully she will understand your situation. You said the word POSH. I just needed you to actually elaborate that for me, please.
Sure.
Yes.
POSH is Prevention of Sexual Harassment to Women at Workplace.
Okay. Only women?
The Act says only women. But then most organizations, institutions, when they kind of get their POSH policies in place, they extend it to every employee in the organization. It even goes beyond the binaries, I can say. They are that considerate about protecting employees.
Right. Is it mandatory that every company should actually have a POSH committee? Is it mandatory now?
Yes, every organization, whether it is a private organization or a government organization, it is mandatory for them to have a POSH internal committee and also have a POSH training session for the members of all the workforce.
Right. Let me imagine, supposing I have an issue like this, will I come to a lawyer outside of my workplace, or will I go to my own company? What if they don't listen to me? They'll say, why don't you just go off and get another job then? Isn't that what will happen?
That's nice, because first point of contact for any employee within the workforce of any organization will be their internal committee. Go to the internal committee. See, the internal committee has a mandate by law, So it has protocols that it has to follow. And if it doesn't follow, it will be questioned for not following.
By who?
By the government, by the law enforcing authorities.
Okay.
So if somebody comes to the internal committee with a complaint or a concern, the committee is duty bound to listen to the concern and it has its protocols where it has to address the concern, inquire into the complaint and give a recommendation within 90 days.
Okay.
If it doesn't, then the person who has the complaint can always approach a court and say, I have an internal committee that is non-functional, and the internal committee will be pulled up for this.
Do they actually listen when they're pulled up? What happens then? I'm sounding skeptical. I know, I understand that, but it's just something that I see all the time happening.
To be very, very frank with you, I can tell you that most organizations' internal committees, where there is a proper internal committee constituted, it does function well.
Is that a confidential committee? Tell me.
Yes, very confidential committee. So beyond the committee members, beyond the complainant and beyond the respondent, meaning the person against whom the complaint is given, beyond them, nobody in the organization will get to know about what is happening inside the committee. In fact, the recommendations that the committee makes will be given only to the implementing authority. Which is one of the the delegates of one of the representative of the employer.
Okay.
Say supposing in one particular team, there's been a concern of sexual harassment from one of the team members against the team lead. Okay. Now here, beyond the team lead, if there is a line manager and if there's a senior manager, none of them will even get to know that there is such a complaint within the team.
Yes.
It's that confidential. It's maintained so confidentially.
Okay. God forbid that is the owner of the company. Then what do you do then in that case?
Yes, it calls for a lot of guts from the internal committee members to call the owner of the organization and to question him.
Challenge the owner?
Yeah, but it has happened in a few cases. I can tell you, it has happened where the owner himself or herself has been pulled up for such behaviors happening. But really, I can't vouch for all organizations because it also depends on the dynamics of the people in the internal committee, because there's a very natural conflict because the internal committee members are appointed by the
management, yes. Sure. Tell me from your own experience, have you an idea of how many cases like this you might have actually represented over the years, over the 8 years, shall we say?
Okay, the number of complaints that I would have received sitting on various internal committees, I think it should be more than 200 plus.
Okay. Is there a certain age group that is more victims of sexual harassment, or what has your experience told you?
Yeah, I definitely need to talk about that because, see, basically the core of sexual harassment comes from the point that there can't be a second way about we being in a very patriarchal society.
Yeah.
And certain behaviors are very normalized. We've been told that, oh, this behavior you have to just ignore. This is what is normal behavior. Women will be shouted down at times. You don't have to take it so seriously. Just ignore it. Just accept it. Just, adjust to this. These are things that have been told over times to us, that this just reflects in our workplace, because workplace is not an isolated place. It's just a mirror of our society. Mm-hmm. So what we ignore, what we accept, what we tolerate, what we stand up to outside is what we get to see here also in workspaces, right? So what happens is when there is this kind of, acceptance of a certain behavior that is kind of hitting at women, it becomes very difficult for them to stay in the workforce.
Right. But Nalini, what frightens me, just, offhand as a comment, I think many women will actually keep this kind of thing within themselves rather than even share it with a father or a mother. Is that something that you have encountered?
To a great extent, no, Jennifer.
Really?
Yes. Because of thanks to these kind of training programs, awareness sessions, where we feel that, the transformation towards a more dignified life starts with these training sessions. They are just not checkbox ticks that we have to make. Mm-hmm. So I see a lot of women standing up and making it loud and known to people. And while we at the IC, we constantly keep telling them, we keep thanking people who come with the complaints, saying that you're not talking for yourself, you're talking for your entire workforce there.
Right.
We keep thanking them so much that, you've stood up to a certain behavior which you found
Good for you.
inappropriate. Not only good for you, you're making other people also safe in your environment.
Right. When did this POSH come into being?
POSH was notified as an act in the year 2013 on December 9th.
Mm-hmm.
See, prior to that, I just
that's
want
exactly what I was going
yes.
to ask you. How was it before that?
Yes, yeah, because that's so important.
Yes, very important.
See, India as a nation, we kind of signed up for the CEDAW, that is the Convention on Elimination of All Kinds of Discrimination Against Women in 1993 at the international level. And in 1997 was the Visakhapatnam judgment, which is the forerunner of POSH.
Okay.
Visakhapatnam judgment, which was a public interest litigation contested before the Supreme Court of India, for the first time it said that sexual harassment to a woman means you are hitting at the constitutional rights of a woman, which means like Article 14, 15, 19, which talks about fundamental rights of people. It said you're hitting at that fundamental right of a woman to take up any profession, to have a very safe workplace, to have dignity in her life. So when the Visakhapatnam judgment came about in 1997 and it said sexual harassment is just no more a single individual's problem, it is a constitutional violation, then people became more aware of it. Courts started looking at it in a very different angle. And then in 2013, which is almost like 15 years thereafter, the act was passed.
Right. I have read in many a magazine, in the newspapers, about the way women are blamed for what happens. She dressed like this, or she did this, or she behaved in a certain fashion. So who is going to protect that aspect of this whole issue? How does it work?
I think that has to be from the popular mindset of the people, Jennifer, because the recent, if I can just draw a reference to the recent Coimbatore incident that happened as well, people said, what was the need for this girl to be there at 11 o'clock in the night, and that too on a very deserted road? So the first feedback that we get is why was the person there? So it's kind of victimizing the person.
Absolutely.
Does it mean that somebody is there at that place or somebody dresses in a certain manner? Who gives you the ticket to behave in that way?
That's right. Who gives you the right to do that to me?
Just because somebody is like that or somebody is at a particular time in some place, but where do you get your right to behave in that particular manner?
Right.
That nobody questions. The first question is,
why? Why did she do that?
Yes. So why do you give a chance for somebody to behave like that? Is the first question that comes. But I think, these kind of talking all over the place and people talking about it, why victimize the victim? Look at who gives them the right to behave in a certain manner. This is my country, my right to be where I am, dress what I want to, but that doesn't give you any ticket to do what you want.
I would imagine that is the case. Now, from your very vast experience, what happens to these people who actually harass a woman? What happens to them?
So at the workplace, when a complaint is brought and then it is investigated, the internal committee is almost a quasi-judicial body, like a court.
So?
Yes.
So what can they do to that guy or that person?
We can recommend, we can recommend even termination from the workforce for the person. Or, if it's a very minor kind of an inappropriate behavior, we can say that he or she should not be, placed in a promotion bar, should not be given incentives, should not be moved to any other overseas assignment, something that can be that affects tangible conditions of employment it affects.
When I think about it, what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. For instance, I mean, how does anybody say that this is only a minor thing, this is a major thing? Sexual harassment is sexual harassment, is it not?
Absolutely. But then, if you look at the definition of sexual harassment from the Act,
yes,
even a facial gesture.
Really?
Yes. Even an inappropriate facial gesture, even a stare at a person, a whistling, a sound, all of this can find place in sexual harassment. It's just not no more, when we say sexual harassment, it's just not, physically abusing a person. There are verbal abuses, physical, verbal, non-verbal, virtual, All of these form part of sexual harassment, So, some words, just one suggestive comment. Like I've had a very, very, very typical example of a suggestive comment that was told by a person while recruitment was happening. The recruitment manager just told, the recruitment executive, those two people are easy on the eyes, get them in.
Wow. So that was harassment,
yes.
Would you say?
Yes, sexual harassment, because he said easy on the eyes, looking at the two women there.
Wow. That's
the scope of sexual harassment.
That's troubling me. That is really troubling me. I have heard that in an office, one young man turned around to the girl and called her darling. And I thought to myself, that's odd. What gives you the right to call somebody else by a term of endearment? But doesn't that happen quite a lot?
It does happen. As long as the other person does not feel uncomfortable, this is okay. But the moment the other person feels uncomfortable, then this becomes harassment.
So what do you think is the first step that a woman should actually take when she encounters something like this? Does she go to the POSH committee within her office? Does she go to her supervisor? Does she go to her boss? How does she deal with it?
First point is here, when it happens and if people are able to recognize that, they stand up to it and say, hey, listen, I am not this. Don't ever try doing it to me again. That's the first step that is required. But most people, what happens is they don't recognize that what has been happening to them is harassment at all.
You mean they just pass it off?
Yeah, they just ignore it. They give the benefit of doubt to the person who is doing it by saying, okay, probably he's had a bad day at home, so he's just showing it on me. Or they just ignore it for the first time, second time. And typical responses are like, they just keep away from the person for some time, thinking that this will send them a signal that they are not happy. But it just doesn't send any signal to anybody unless it is told.
Right. But what proof does a young woman, old woman, any age, middle age, whatever, what proof does that person actually produce in the court? If somebody comes up there and says, well, what proof do you have that I called you darling? I mean, that's the case in point here. What happens there then? How does she prove that this guy has sexually harassed her or whatever? I mean, how does she prove that? That troubles me.
So first thing is, I think I missed answering your first question on age groups of victims. I think there's absolutely no age group, no geography that binds one set of people. Nothing says that, the timid kind of people are the ones to be harassed or the oversensitive ones are the ones who are more harassed. Absolutely nothing. It could be anybody that is getting harassed. And now here, when it's within the workplace, the first point for them is go to the POSH committee. And the POSH committee, as I said, is like a courtroom that is sitting inside the office. So it does the investigations and it comes with the judgment.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So when the POSH committee looks at a certain complaint, whether there are any evidence to prove that this particular thing has happened or not, may always not be there in black and white.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And, when we look a bit into what is sexual harassment, we would understand that sexual harassment actually happens when in isolation. Somebody gets the guts to do a certain thing which they know is not right, only when they don't have people looking at them.
So no evidence.
So many times we come across a complaint that has absolutely no evidence.
So who's going to listen to me then in the court?
No.
Or who's going to listen in the committee?
What the committee does is, or the powers of the committee is to call for witness whom we believe could have been in the vicinity of the incident. That's number one. Number two is we can also pull up CCTV camera footages from the place. Say, supposing it was an office party happening at a restaurant,
yes,
and then we found something happening
that was not appropriate. Okay.
And while in a party, not everybody is bothered about what the other person is doing. Everybody are in their own sphere of joy and fun. So when it comes like that, then we pick up the footages from the circuit cameras and then we see what has actually happened. And then we pick up information from the witnesses saying, was there any immediate, show of discomfort by this person? Did she walk away from that scene? Was she dancing and she felt uncomfortable? So did you see her walking away? Then when did she leave the place? So all of these kind of corroborative circumstantial evidence we take into account.
Here, of course, we are presuming that somebody is going to stand up for you and say, yes, I was witness to this. That's a bit of a troubling thing, isn't it?
Yes,
I would say.
because these are all very confidential process.
Yes.
The others outside of this may not even know who's been called as a witness. So then there is people who are willing to come, and since they are part of the institution or the organization, they also have a liability to attend the call, because we are, as I said, the POSH committee is like a court. So when you receive a court summons, you have to come and attend it. You have no choice.
That's right, yes. How prevalent is sexual harassment in our country, as opposed to the Western world, as opposed to Southeast Asia, so many other parts of the world?
Very prevalent, can I say?
Really?
Yes. But that's, yes.
Very, very prevalent?
Yes.
That's a very bothersome comment.
Absolutely.
So how are we going to make it less?
I think the number of cases, the general talk about people is, when they want to have a POSH training in organizations, they would say, oh, now women would now come up with all kinds of complaints as soon as they are made aware of their laws and what is.
They'll use that to their advantage, as it were.
But to me is, the more the cases come, then people realize their behaviors and moderate their behaviors.
But we don't see it in the papers that much, do we?
We don't see it in the papers that much.
Why not?
We should ask the papers why they are not getting reported.
Yes, of course, because somebody is not going, or the right reporter isn't coming to that story.
Yes.
From your experience, how many people have actually had the rap? How many have actually been accused of sexual harassment? I don't mean you as in a personal capacity, but overall in the legal fraternity.
I don't think I would have numbers for that.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think there are numbers even available, because the number of cases that are reported on the site, say that we have a 𝗓𝗍 portal, and which is part of the Ministry of Women and Child Development, which has a box, 𝗓𝗍 portal it is called, where anybody having a concern of sexual harassment being given, having been faced by them, they can file a complaint online. And that would be given to the respective organizations or to the local committees to be investigated. But the numbers are not the real numbers. They are not reflective of the actual happenings.
Of course.
It's about 14%, if I can say.
Okay. Of course, I guess we are really talking about the urban society that we all live in. What about out in the districts, in the smaller, the tier 2 cities, the tier 3 cities? What happens there? It must be really rampant.
But the POSH Act, I can tell you, covers everybody. It just doesn't stick only to the organized sectors. It even supports women, or it protects women even in the unorganized sector, where we feel vulnerability to a certain behavior is more in the unorganized sector.
Really?
So there are local committees in the government, taluk offices, or in the district headquarters, where these local committees are the bodies that will receive the complaints and investigate for people from the unorganized sector.
Right. What do you think is the responsibility that parents, mothers and fathers have to take? I would imagine that is an extremely important part of this whole process.
Very, very important. In fact, for me, POSH is kind of, once we start POSH trainings at organizations and people internalize these behaviors, what happens? They take it with them to their families, then to their communities, then to the society and to the nation at large. So, from here, when I learn this is how I respect boundaries, this is how I have to respect another human being, and then I internalize it, I take it to my family. There in the family, I'm able to show my children and my next of kin and kith that this is how I behave and this is how you have to behave. And this translates to the community and this translates to the nation.
Right.
But where does it start from, as you said? Either from the POSH trainings, where I see it as a great beginning, or from the families, where when we nurture our children, we have to tell them that respecting another human being is very, very important. And for me, Jennifer, if I can tell you this,
please.
For me, the crux of POSH is where we are able to acknowledge differences of human beings. why I would like to draw this from. A psychological need for every human being is we see commonalities and we connect.
Right.
Be it religion, be it political ideology, skin color, tone of voice, or whatever, we connect with people with commonalities, and this very, very unconsciously develops a kind of a distance with people with whom I'm not able to connect on commonalities. So what happens is I treat the person where I don't find a commonality as a different person. And that is the start point for any kind of discrimination, and that leads to harassment, and that leads to sexual harassment.
I can see the connect you're making here. I would have thought that there are many parents, mothers and fathers, who are somewhat old-fashioned about stuff like this, because perhaps the earlier generation was, not so vulnerable, if that's the right word. And nowadays, women are out in the workplace and they're out in public society, and they demand that something has to be done, and they demand that this is not the way they're going to be treated. What do you do about those old-fashioned parents? That bothers, that's troubling.
Yes. Yeah, I think the second generation of people give them the message at home that this is not the way to be treated. This is not the way I've had so many instances of girls of 20 and all going back and telling their mothers, you don't have to keep quiet for whatever Papa tells you. You should talk back. If he is sitting in the living room and telling you switch on the fan or get me a glass of water, the girls are telling their parents, you don't have to do it. You tell Papa to do it himself.
Right.
I've had people come back and tell me.
That's interesting.
Yes,
that's very, very
they come back
interesting.
and tell me, I've gone and told my mom, you don't have to put up with all these things. This is not your job. You're doing enough at home. This let Papa do. So that's a nice way that the younger generation is able to take the message to the...
Right. 3 cheers for that comment. I think it's a wonderful point on which I would like to end this extremely interesting discussion, because it is an issue that we need to look at. It's an issue that everybody should be exposed to. And I really think that it's the sons in the family, it's the mothers and fathers who need to be far more supportive of daughters, whether young, middle-aged, older. I really think so. Nalini, it's been my pleasure and my joy that you could come in here today. I'm so, so, so grateful for your comments. May your tribe increase. That's all I can say.
Thank you once again, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Well, it was great to have Nalini here in the studio with me. I'm delighted that she's been able to throw so much light on this terrible issue of sexual harassment. And you heard from her saying how prevalent it is in our country. We all have to stand up against this. And you, my viewers, I hope you've enjoyed listening to us. I hope you have taken some tips, at least, just a few. And in the meantime, you take care, look after yourselves. Bye for now.